So we've got what we always like to see for a sequence. We've got an all stakes pick five at Keeneland on Saturday. It comprises races 6 through 10. And we'll start with the Woodford. That's leg one. It's a grade two, sixth race on the Saturday card at Keeneland. It's run at 5.5 furlongs on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. And this is a pretty wide open race, I would say. I looked through it and I tried to find, as I always do, a ribbon that makes the shape of the race and the way we want to go with it. And what I looked for, going through all the horses, there's quite a few that are a little off form. And I don't know that anybody's in really good form per se, but that's kind of what I was looking at. Now, you see here, we don't have a confirmed front runner. Probably the closest thing we would get, I'd say, is likely Super Quest, the favorite. But Super Quest to me is a horse that class-wise maybe doesn't quite step up. I'm not overly certain about it. I'm not really. It's not a race I have a whole lot of confidence in. I'll just say that right off the bat. But I think he's likely to be on the lead, and that may be enough in this field, is just get on the lead and go. Because again, there's a lot of form for these horses that is kind of shaky. Nothing you can really hang your hat on solidly. Looking at it, to me, None Hudson looked like the best bet for a couple of reasons. Number one, this horse is coming in third off the layoff, so and has a progression for the last two races to indicate that he's poised to run a big race. Now, the one drawback is for Wesley Ward is, a lot of his horses don't run consistently. They take a lot of time off between starts, and None Hudson, I don't believe, has ever run 3 starts in a row, so this would be a first. But that indicates to me that Wesley Ward feels good about this horse. 4 years old, there's always a right to improve, and I like the last effort. And I think that, again, I think it's just a matter of form and this horse being poised and ready to run a big race. So I like None Hudson to win this race. At 5-1, I think you're getting a square price as well. We look at the couple of Larry Ravelli's, and you never want to leave him off. No Ball certainly is the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint champ, so he bears taking a look at closely. Thing I haven't liked about his last 2 starts, he seems to be regressing a little bit in each, and that kind of tells me that maybe this is a horse who's starting to make the turn. The skills are starting to diminish a little bit, but he is third off the layoff, and this back class to me merits consideration. I just can't throw him out, and so No Balls to me is a horse that makes some sense in here, though I'm not overly certain we're going to get a top effort. One Timer is, again, another one who the last couple of starts has run really, really well. Just missed with Big Invasion in his last start. And he's got Luis Saez aboard, who really seems to do well with this horse. And I think he's certainly one to consider as well, especially at 15-1. I think he makes sense at Keeneland, and I think it's a good distance for him in particular. So One Timer, one certainly in the mix. Then looking at the rest of them, really I just didn't like the form of the ones I've thrown out. Gear Jockey. If it's not Kentucky Downs, I don't want any part of Gear Jockey. And XY Speed, really more than anything else, the outside post, the way he wants to run is a detriment to me. And so I'm just going to try to beat him. I don't think his form is that bad, but class-wise, I think he's a little suspect, and I think that, again, the outside post is a big detriment. So now looking at the later runners, Axdilm is one that at 15-1 I think is in decent form and coming late in a race like this with a lot of horses off form. Maybe elevates closes. I don't normally like to take them in turf sprints, but I think he's one that has proven pretty consistent, and I think he'll get in the money. I don't like him all the way on top, but I think he's a horse that you can consider for value. Now, Arzak is 2 for 2 at Keeneland, and the only thing about him is he looks like he's a little off at this point, but coming back to a track that he likes, a distance he likes, perhaps may elevate him. I'm not real confident with him getting on top, but I think he's more of an underneath type of play. 6 to 1, you're getting a pretty square price. So, you look at this one, and more than anything else, I'm trying to find value because I just think that when you have a 7 to 2 favorite, you absolutely have to. And I think Super Quest is kind of shaky, in my opinion, at the grade 2 level. So I'm looking for one with upside. I'm looking for one that is in good form. Again, third off the layoff. So no Nate Hudson the pick for me, but this is certainly a spread race because I just think there's, because the form is suspect, and quite a few in here that you've definitely got to have a lot of options if you want to take down this sequence. Leg 2 of the sequence is the Thoroughbred Club of America. It's a grade 2. It's the 7th race on the Saturday card at Keeneland. It's run at 6 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. And really, if you look at something a defining characteristic of this race, to me, it's class. Bright Work's just the best horse in this race, and Bright Work is my pick. I just think she's better than the rest of these. That's really what it comes down to. Came off the bench at 4 and won, and every indication is that she has progressed from her 3-year-old campaign, and I expect another move forward in this one. And if she runs her best race or even one of her good ones, she's going to win. I don't see anybody who's really going to take her down. Spirit Wind in the running at Charlestown last time, it was a little troubling that how quickly she backed up. And I don't know that there was really an explanation that I can see from it. Maybe didn't like the track or whatnot. But even so, likely going to be on the lead here, and she could certainly rebound, but I just don't think she's as good as Bright Work. Clearly Unhinged is a nice horse as well, but another one that I just, at the top effort, I don't think is good enough to beat Bright Work, and that's really what it comes down to more than anything else. The second thing you have to worry about is you wonder about the race shape, and I don't know that we're going to have a lightning fast pace. There's certainly a lot of horses who want to be up near the lead, but Spirit Wind is really the only one who's likely to take the lead. Then you're going to get probably, 22, 45, kind of moderate fractions. And if in fact that's the case, maybe that impacts Zeitlos to a degree. Now, Zeitlos just ran what I consider to be a really nice race. I liked what I saw. I have nothing against Zeitlos except just being a sprint closer in a race where I'm just not sure there's going to be a whole lot of pace, and tactically is going to be at a disadvantage trying to chase down Bright Work. So to me, Bright Work is the pick and a likely single for this race. The First Lady Stakes is a grade 1, and it's leg 3 of the pick 5. It's race number 8 on the Saturday card at Keeneland. It's running a mile on the turf for 3-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. And this is an interesting field. Of course, it's a Chad Brown Invitational, as always is the case on turf at Keeneland. He's got White Beam, Fluffy Socks, Gina Romantica, and Chili Flag. So we have that wonderful puzzle of trying to pick the other Chad Brown in here, or maybe not at all. Looking at this field, certainly there's, because it's a mile race on the turf, there's a lot more horses who want to be up near the lead. And I think A.G. Bullet will likely lead the group. That Kentucky Downs race last time was really impressive. I mean, she take a drink, from right from the gate was just super strong and just blew that field away. Obviously, it was, I know I was high on this horse, and everybody else was too, because I think she was at 15 to 1 and moved all the way down to the favorite at post time. That was a stupendous effort, but note that it was clearly better than anything else she had ever run. That was her highest Brisnet speed figure, I think, by at least 15. The likelihood that she does that again is remote, I would say. One thing I do think though, is that she's going to try to do it again, and she's probably going to bolt from the gate and be really strong early. But I don't see her being late, not after running that big a race. So the one thing residual to that is, of course, everybody's going to have to chase. And for horses like White Beam, Safine, Walkathon, and Evie Jets, I think that's going to make things rather difficult. In particular, Walkathon came off a nice effort at Kentucky Downs, but as we know, horses who come away from Kentucky Downs after winning don't usually do terribly well when they move to other tracks, given the rigors of racing there, the undulations, the high turf, and all that. So I think Walkathon, the other thing about it is when she has moved up in class to a grade 2 or grade 1, it hasn't worked out terribly well. I just think she's a cut below here, and you compound that with coming from Kentucky Downs and with all the other early speed, I think that spells doom. Safine is pretty much the same thing. I just think is a little outclassed here and too much company up front. Evie Jets is, I wouldn't be surprised if Evie Jets hangs around. That's what she tends to do. She's very game, very competitive, but she always seems to weaken late. Maybe can hang on for third, but not a win candidate here. Now, White Beam is marooned in the 11 hole for the way she wants to run. And certainly she won this race last year, I believe, but I don't know. The Diana was not. She didn't win the first lay. I'm sorry, but the Diana she ran in, she was a pretty slow race, and I don't know. I just think at the 11 hole with all this other traffic, I just don't see White Beam being at having optimum conditions. Plus, it's a mile, not a mile and an eighth. I like her better at that distance. So at 7-2, I'm going to let her go. I just don't think it sets up terribly well. So then we take a look, because of the AG Bullet effect, I think there's going to be. I think this race sets up well for our later runners. Now, we look at the mid-runners and Fluffy Socks, the other Chad Brown. I mean, this is a distance that Fluffy Socks earlier in her career did very well at. Hasn't run at it much lately. I didn't think she ran too bad in her last race, but just wasn't good enough. And I don't think it's going to be good enough here. I think there's other horses who are better. You want to put her underneath in the try for the value at 20-1. I could see it, but not a win candidate here. And we know Fluffy Socks doesn't really like to win a whole lot. Tarawa there's a couple things that are very appealing to me. Dermot Weld doesn't send horses over here unless he means business. He's a legend. To me, him having the confidence to send her over here speaks volumes to me. The second thing is, ever since this horse ran in the 1,000 guineas last year and finished fourth, hasn't run against the girls since. She's been running against the boys exclusively and has been holding her own. She's been in the money in virtually every race she's running and got a win last time. It was a Group 3, which is, if it was a Group 1, obviously we could upgrade her a little bit more. But I think this is a horse that running against her own kind certainly is going to be a plus, and the weight allowance that she gets as well. I like Tarawa in this spot. Tactically, should be in a really good position just off the leaders, and and that may give her the jump on some of the later runners. Gina Romantica, I've always found this horse very hard to trust. She won the First Lady last year, beating In Italian, and we kind of knew that she was ready for a big race, and she delivered, but really hasn't followed it up with much late. And you watch her run, and it seems like it takes her a little while to get going. And I just wonder if maybe that's been her detriment. At 3-1, I don't like the price on her at all. She does like Keeneland, and that perhaps will elevate to a degree. But it's just the fact that I never like it when horses have a big win and then they don't follow it up. And she's had plenty of opportunities to get back into Grade 1 winning form and just hasn't done it. So that really gives me pause. And at 3-1, I think that's a bit of an underlay. I mean, it's Keeneland, so she perhaps gets elevated, but I think she's a horse you have to use. But to me, in all honesty, reluctantly, because I just don't. This horse just doesn't seem to get out of her own way. Now, Implicated ran a dud at Kentucky Downs, and the fact that she had been running so well prior to that in her last two starts tells me she just didn't like the track. And if you go back and watch that race, I don't think they asked anything of her at the top of the stretch. It looks like they just sort of eased her out of the race. I'm not going to hold it. I'm not going to take anything away from that race other than the fact that I just don't think she liked the track. And a lot of horses don't. Kentucky Downs is a very unique and enigmatic track. So I'm going to give her another chance here. And at 20-1, I think that's outstanding value for a horse that had really good form going into that race in Kentucky Downs. And I frankly liked a lot. So I'll give her another chance. If she can move forward, continue that progression that she was making, she could be very tough in here, and you're getting a nice price. Special One, to me, is more of a horse for under. He did win his debut in the States, and I always like to see that. But really, wasn't much of a race. And you look at this horse's back class from Europe, and it was always a horse in the money, but doesn't win a whole lot. I did note the horse carried a lot of weight, and I do look for that, because that tells me that that the horse has a serious chance to win. The more weight they carry, the less weight, then they maybe, he's kind of an also-ran. So if they're an also-ran in Europe and they come over here, big deal, right? But I think Special One maybe has a little bit more to offer in the tank. And at 20-1, I'm willing to take a chance, but probably more for underneath in the exotics. I don't know that I want to go too terribly deep. No more than 4 I'm going to use in this race because to me, it's one of those you just sort of have to plant your flag, because there's just so many ways to go in a race like this that's pretty balanced. I'm looking for horses I think are in good form and ready to fire. Chili Flag is certainly one of them. This is her distance. She is a miler. Don't worry about the Diana last time. That's too far for her. She is been much more proficient at a mile at this class level. Now, when she's running lower classes, she can run longer because she's just classier than the rest of the horses. So I don't worry about that too much. I think she's right back in her wheelhouse, and I think Chili Flag makes a lot of sense here, particularly at 6-1. But Tarawa is the pick in what I think is a pretty wide open field, and is awful tough to get this one home. So now we come to the featured race on the day of a day of great racing, the Breeders Futurity. It's a Grade 1. It's the 4th leg of the All-Stakes Pick 5. It's the 9th race on Saturday's card at Keeneland, and it's run at a 1.16 for 2-year-olds. So all the ones in this race will be going 2 turns for the first time, and as we know, it's going to elevate some, it's going to send some back. Excuse me. Looking at the race shape here, of the front runners, I didn't see any of them, to me, that came out of a race where they really ran against anything with the type of race that told me that they were capable of wiring this field. In particular, the fractions look kind of slow to me for sprints they were coming out of, and that tells me that the turn of foot maybe isn't necessarily there. And when the fields are weak, of course, they're not going to have to turn it on. So if they do have a little more talent, moving up into a 2-turn race where the class level is a lot higher makes me very reticent to use them. Optical and Ready for Peace, I don't think have shown me enough to think that they could wire it. I know a lot of people are excited about East Avenue, and you can see by the 3-1 price that this is a horse that's probably going to take a lot of money. But I've got to tell you, watching that maiden win, first of all, he didn't beat anything. There was nothing in that field. And look at the fractions, 23 and 46 for a 6-furlong race. You're going to have to show me more than that before I'm going to think you can wire a field around 2 turns in a graded stakes race, let alone a Grade 1. with other horses who have faced tougher. So you can use East Avenue, but I'm really against this horse, and I don't intend to use in my exotic betting at all. And I just don't think is a viable win candidate here. I may be wrong, but that's the way I see it. Looking next at Tenacious Leader is kind of interesting to me. Sort of reminds me of Major Dude. A Todd Pletcher horse that migrated between turf and dirt. This is a horse clearly has talent, but I liked it a lot better on the turf. Ran behind Zulu Kingdom last time. Nothing to be ashamed of there. That certainly demonstrates there's some talent. But on the dirt, this horse won a race off the turf. And what does that mean? You take a lot of horses who are more proficient at turf or can't run on dirt. And it's just not as good a field. I don't think it shows a whole lot. Still, this horse has some talent, and I think we can keep in the mix. I'm just a little hesitant to put on top, given some of the others who are accomplished on dirt. But I think you can use Tenacious Leader because I think this one does have some talent, and we'll be in a pretty good position just off the early pace. And if he's got enough, he can take it home. I just like others better. That's really what it comes down to. And I am a little bothered that all of a sudden this horse is running on turf, and now they put him on dirt. And that sounds to me like a little Mike Rapoli decision there, but I'll leave that for your conjecture. Ferocious is my pick in this race. I know Ferocious is a bit of an enigma. This horse has a little Tapatrice in him to a degree. And not necessarily the same problem of being slow out of the gate. I'm talking about the desire to win. Now, the thing about Ferocious in the hopeful, I think he should have won that race. He had the better trip. There was just, he had the jump on Chance of McPatrick, and yet he wasn't able to get it done. And if you watch that replay in the top of the stretch, they were all over him to get him going. And it's almost like he didn't understand what he was supposed to be doing in the race until all of a sudden Chance of McPatrick came up on his ass, and he woke up and kicked it back into gear. It's going to take a jockey to really lay into this horse, and who better for that than Luis Saez? And I think that is an absolute marriage made in heaven. We saw the work he did with Tapatrice. He's a strong rider, and I think he could make the difference here. Ferocious towers over this field, speed figure-wise. He is a little prohibitive of an 8-5, given what I saw over his last two efforts. Because even in his win the first time, it took him a little bit to get into gear. So it tells me that 2 turns is certainly going to be better for this horse, and he clearly wants it. And I think that and the addition of Luis Saez should get the job done. So Ferocious, I like in this spot. Now, if you're looking for a horse as an alternative, I love Dapper Moon. I really liked what I saw on his last effort. He was professional. He worked his way through traffic, and I believe he got the same figure that Ferocious got in the hopeful. So this is a horse with talent, and I think there's more to come. He's got 2-turn pedigree, and Dallas Stewart's barn has been firing on all cylinders lately. He had a great Churchill Downs meet. So to me, Dapper Moon, if you're looking for a horse to beat Ferocious, I think he's the one. We look at the other late runners, and it's funny because Handsome Pants ran in that maiden at Churchill Downs, and I threw him out. And the reason being, he was a Kenny McPeak first-time starter, and they just don't normally fire. But I'll tell you, I didn't want to like this horse, but I really liked what I saw. He was extremely professional. He was extremely mature. I couldn't believe he was a first-time starter the way he wove his way through traffic without any hesitation. He drew off nicely, and I think Kenny McPeak's got a good one here because he wouldn't wheel him right back into a Grade 1 stakes race if this horse wasn't going well. At 10-1, you're getting an outstanding price, and if he wins this, I will not be surprised at all. Handsome Pants is absolutely an overlay in this spot, and I really like a lot. Macero is a later runner, and I like what I've seen from him. I just kind of worry about his getting up and taking these, getting up over the more prominent horses in this race. But I think he's certainly one you can use at 15-1. I like him more for underneath. I'll just mention Filoso as one that I know some people, I've heard some talk about, people kind of excited about, think he's talented. Yeah, okay, but his last race, he had the perfect trip. And that's really what bothers me about him more than anything. I don't like taking horses who win a maiden where everything goes their way. I've mentioned that more than enough times. It's kind of the reason I'm a little sour on East Avenue. But he could surprise, but I don't think he's fast enough at this point. He'd need a pretty big leap to get on the top here. So you want to use him underneath. I can certainly understand it, but I'm going to pass on him. I think this is a good race. I think we're going to have some safety from Ferocious. I'm not comfortable singling him, though he is the most likely candidate to win this race. But Dapper Moon to me and Handsome Pants are two horses that I think make a lot of sense here. So we can spread a little bit here. But this should be a really fun race. It usually is. The final leg of the All Stakes Pick 5 on Keeneland Saturday card is the Coolmore Turf Mile. It's a grade 1. It's run at 1 mile on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. And we have once again another Chad Brown Invitational. He's got Spirit of St. Louis, the New York bred, Carl Spackler, the impressive winner at Saratoga last time. Running Bee as well. So you've got once again the Chad Brown Roulette. Which one do you want? Looking at this field, you've got again, because it's a mile, you've got quite a few who like to be up and around the lead, but we don't have a confirmed front runner. I'm going to guess it's either going to be Talk of the Nation or Spirit of St. Louis. More so just because, Talk of the Nation, that's he's capable of doing it and may just inherit the lead. But I think Spirit of St. Louis, just because I think this horse is stepping up in class. And I think there's a reason Chad Brown hasn't taken this one out of New York bred stakes races. And so this to me looks like kind of an owner's decision, a now or never. Let's find out what is under the tank, under the hood rather. And so they're going to throw Spirit of St. Louis in here. Going on the other Chad Brown, and that's really all it is. I'd throw Spirit of St. Louis at 15-1 underneath, but I don't see him having enough to win this race. Talk of the Nation just is really hard to trust for the win. He seems to settle in the money more than he does winning, and that's kind of what I'm thinking here at 8-1 for underneath your exotics. We do have a couple of European shippers, Kikuli and Mountain Bear. Frankly, neither one of them has really, looking at their running lines and seeing them run, I'm not really that impressed with either of them, to be honest. And I think Mountain Bear's had every chance to get better after that juvenile turf second, where he ran very surprisingly in the money. But he hasn't built on it. He just seems to stay running in the money at best. They've been slow to move this horse up, and he really hasn't responded. And I just when you watch a horse like that, just the way he runs, he just seems like they really have to get into him to get him going, and then he just doesn't have that explosiveness that you would need, I think, in this race to overtake the top two. So Mounted Bear to me is more of a horse for underneath. Kukuli, I just didn't like. I just didn't see anything to get me excited about, to be honest, more than anything else. And I don't see enough pedigree-wise from meeting the trainer's record in the U.S. or anything else to get me really excited. And I think 4-1 is a bit of an underlay. In this case, I don't think the Europeans are bringing horses really who can beat ours. And the two best in here are obvious. They're Carl Spackler and More Than Looks. They both ran at Saratoga last time. More Than Looks after a long layoff. And Carl Spackler in the 4-star Dave just ran a dominating race. So he was just fantastic all the way around the track. Now, the one thing you got to wonder about, can he do it again? Was that a peak effort? He had quite a few starts. And one thing I remembered about his 3-year-old campaign, I believe it was, is that a lot of times Chad Brown scratched him out of races when he ended up on an outside post. I think he had 2 or 3 races in a row where he was parked out in the 11 or the 12 hole, and Chad Brown just scratched him rather than run him. So now you're in the 9 hole here, the furthest outside. Now it's not as extreme as the 11 or 12, but it does give me a little bit of pause. And you do wonder about that if maybe this is a horse who needs everything his own way. I don't know. But if you're looking for a reason to try to beat him, there you go. You got something. That, and he just ran so big last time. You just have to wonder with the Breeders' Cup coming up if there's going to be a bit of a letdown. I like Carl Spackler in this race. He can absolutely win it, but I'm going with More Than Looks. And the reason being is that first start after a long layup for More Than Looks in the 4-star Dave, he was ranked. No surprise there. Hadn't run in a while. He's filled out. He looks every bit the picture of an older horse. And what I really liked was because he hadn't run in a while, and because he was ranked early in the stretch, they were really getting after him, trying to get him going, and he really didn't, I don't think, had his optimum kick because I think he was still shaking the rust off. So that to me says that with a race under his belt to shake off all the cobwebs, he's going to run huge on Saturday, and I really like More Than Looks in this spot. 3-1 is square. And but I think it's those two, and I really looked hard to try to find an alternative. And but if you look at Cash Equity or Running B, they're not grade 1 horses, not to me. Running B to me looks like a horse that because he's by Chad Brown, people keep waiting for that big race, and I think if anybody else trained him, you'd be like, okay, he's a pretty good horse, maybe grade 3 caliber, but that's about it. And that's what I think you have here. So I'm not, he just hasn't done anything to tell me that he's going to do anything that he doesn't do already, which is just kind of hang around, get into the money. You can get in the money here at 12-1, and you want to use him, fine. I can see that, but you can't expect him to be a win candidate, not when you got More Than Looks and Carl Spackler in this race. So those are my top two. It's one or the other, and if I could have found a way to beat either of them, I would have. As you know, I like to try to do that, but I just don't see it here, and especially from the European shippers. Neither one of them excites me. So that's what we're going to go with. We're going with More Than Looks as the primary and Carl Spackler. So we take a look at our ticket. Leg 1, we're going to spread. I think that's probably the hardest race on the card, 1, 5, 6, and 8. We're going to single Bright Work in the 7th. In race 8, we're going to go with 2, 4, 8, and 9. In the Futurity, we're going to go with 1, 4, and 10. And in leg 5, the Coolmore Turf Mile, we're going to go with 3 and 9. That is a little bit on the chalky side, and I'm sorry I don't have the total for you, so I'll do it here. That's 4 times 4 is 16, times 3 is 48, times 2 is 96. So that's a $48 ticket on a 50-cent base, and I think we do want to keep it pretty small because we do have some, particularly in the legs 2, 4, and 5, you've got some pretty chalky, pretty low-priced horses for sure. So anyway, that's the pick 5. I hope our analysis helps you with your own wagering strategy. I wish you the best of luck as always. We've got individual postings for a lot of the Keeneland Stakes on Saturday as well as Friday's card. I hope you had a chance to take a look at this as I'm doing this on Friday. And we've got the Frizette and the Champagne Stakes for Aqueduct, and time permitting, we'll try to get a couple more in for the Aqueduct card. So it should be a really fun day of racing. And again, I wish you the best of luck. That's it from here. I'll talk to you soon. And until then, be well.